Hi everyone, welcome
Hello.
back to Those Guys. I'm
Yeah,
Jake.
we're
I'm,
back, and guess what? You know how last Tuesday we were like, no, last Thursday or last Tuesday? No, last Tuesday we were like, that was the last time we were gonna do a Thursday for a while because you know what? Life is good. We're back to like regular things, and then
we're
guess what
we're
happened this week?
organized.
On Monday, someone texted me going, "Hey, Reese, are you up for? Remember this thing you said you'd do on Tuesday? Just checking you're still good for that." I was like, "Ugh." And this was like 3 months ago. I said I would. I was like, "Oops." So, congratulations. Welcome to Thursday. We will be back to Tuesday. We're not going to switch to Thursdays because I have too much other stuff. This is like the problem with life, man. Stuff just happens.
Stuff
Um,
happens.
Man, what has been going on? I We normally like to do a little bit of like, oh, what's going on in the world of like infosec, and the only thing I can think of is something that showed up in a Slack channel I'm in about Thunderbolt issues, something to do with Thunderbolt. I suppose it's the old lesson though. If someone's got physical access to your computer, they've got complete
Is
access.
that the one I posted?
No, no,
No,
no. This
a
was a
different
different one
one.
I saw. You
Well,
might have something that you posted.
I can't remember now. It was a while ago.
Welcome to
That's
life.
fine. Yeah, I guess we
Cool.
can just dive straight in. How about that?
Yep, let's do it.
So it's been retired for a while now that it's Thursday, but we're doing Zipper this week. Um, it's a medium difficulty, I think, in the middle somewhere. Not too hard, but not too easy either. Start off as always with our nmap scan. I've already run that, so I'm just gonna cat nmap so we can see the results. We've got SSH open on port 22, and we've got a website open on port 80. As we know from pretty much every other hack the box that we've done with a website on it, before we do anything manual, actually, no, we'll do a little bit manual because we want to test a few things first. I jumped the gun a little bit.
Yeah, it's that classic case of before we go and do anything manual, we're going to go and do something manual.
Well, only because part of our Go Buster, which is going to be the next thing, is figuring out file extensions. So manually browsing to the site, we can figure out file extensions. So
Yeah,
we can see here we've got a default Apache 2 site with I guess it's just the default landing page. Not a lot we can do with this manually unless we know somewhere to browse to. We know that Apache 2 generally serves up PHP pages, so we're going to run a GoBuster against this site, and our command is gobuster-w for the word list, and we pretty much always use GoBuster's medium directory list. T100 is going to have 100 threads just to make it run a little bit faster. Our U is our URL for the site that we're going to start testing against, which is 10.10.10.108. And our X is those file extensions. So we're going to test for text pages, HTML pages, and PHP pages.
so the reason why we quickly had a look at the site. So some rules of thumb: if it's Apache, it's probably going to be PHP or what are they called again? CGI. Occasionally you'll see like a .cgi.
Yes.
They're PHP is definitely the most common. Otherwise, everything's kind of URL mapped, and there are no extensions for like scripts.
Yeah.
When it comes to IIS, it's going to be predominantly ASP, ASPX, and probably PHP is like a number 3 or 4, depending. But again, you can do the same URL mappings. But the idea is that depending on the web server is a good guess for what kind of language you're looking for, which will help find a few more things that classic case of like what GoBuster does is kind of defeats the security by obscurity idea of if I give my page an obscure name, people won't find it.
Yes.
And GoBuster is proof that they will.
If someone's persistent enough, they will find it. So, because there's not actually a website for us to browse around and poke at manually, We kind of just have to wait for this to come
This
back
bit-
with
This
a
bit
result.
is like where we always struggle in streams. Sometimes so we have to wait because this is where we noticed. Interesting aside, while we're waiting for this,
Yep.
is when we used to do streams that were less prepared and we just like we're gonna do a box and we don't know what we're doing. We'd have like half an hour where we'd barely talk because we're thinking hard about like what next and blindly clicking around and trying stuff, and you get to listen to us and ah. And in that time,
I wonder
people would evaporate from the stream.
Yeah.
Like, and we'd go from like, there's 8 people. Man, this is how much of a fan base we have. I say fan base. We don't even have a following. But like we've got a few dedicated people. But
I'm pretty sure Twitch only shows the number in millions, isn't it? So that's 8 million.
9 million.
9 million.
Yeah.
Pretty sure that's how Twitch works. So,
So anyway, we'd watch like basically it drop out to just like 1 or 2 hardcore fans, or occasionally because I'm logged in, so I can like look at the chat, and Jake's logged in as well. So our numbers
those are our 2 hardcore fans.
Yeah. So like we are like 20% of the viewer base. It's kind of funny. This is still going. I forgot how long this actually takes. I mean, we can kind of shortcut it and just jump straight to the site and then come back to this because we know what the next step is.
So the 100,050 or 10,050 port, it's open but TCP wrapped, which I guess kind of means that there's no banner information or anything like that that Nmap can use to determine what's running on that port. While we're waiting anyway, we can run...
Yeah. So in this box, we didn't have to use anything on that port. It might have been another path in. Sometimes they have a few different paths.
Yeah, so when we try and connect to that port directly, it doesn't return any kind of banner or information on what it does. And as soon as you type anything, it just kills the connection. So
TCP wrapped is like an application that was, network access kind of control utility on Unix systems and Linux that you can set it so it'll allow a full TCP handshake and then it'll kill the connection. So presumably you might have to give it the right sort of input or be coming from the right address. So potentially maybe localhost. We never actually checked that. So it's really just another way of firewalling.
Yeah, so it marks it as open because it did that full TCP handshake, but the TCP wrapped is kind of, I guess, that in terms of the result columns, the TCP wrapped comes under the service column, so it knows the port's open, but it doesn't know what's running on it. Yeah.
So it's really no different to if you wrote a C application or a Python application or whatever, listening on a port that would handily accept a connection, and then as soon as you tried to send through data, the connection dies.
Thanks for the follow, Unseen NRG. Hope you enjoy the rest of the stream.
But yeah, essentially, then in your logic, I've received input from the client, I'll kill the connection. And that's what it looks like externally anyway, TCP wrapped. It's not something that I've come across too much because for firewalling and port restrictions, you tend to use like IP tables on Linux for managing all that stuff. For once you're getting into the realms of the BSDs, it's a bit different.
Okay, so I don't know why. We have got alert boxes in OBS, but they don't show up on the stream. So I don't know. They've always been broken.
One just showed up on the stream, but it said those guys are now following. I'm like,
oh, that was me clicking the test widget. But the real one, so the test ones show up, but I didn't see the real one. I just heard the noise in my headphones. So
anyway, we've got what we're after.
Yeah, we can see that we finally find a directory called Zabbix. So only because we know that this is what we're looking for, I'm just going to kill that GoBuster so it stops running in the background. And then we're going to browse there. So Zabbix. I should do this incognito, shouldn't I? Oh, I have the other file. Never mind. So we've got a basic Zabbix login form. We can try a few defaults like admin password, that sort of thing. And stop remembering.
I suppose we should say Zabbix is like a monitoring tool. If you've ever used Nagios or I'm sure it's like other stuff that I've used in the past, like Splunk, except Splunk's a bit more lower level. I think Zabbix rolls things up a bit, but essentially it's infrastructure management. So you have an agent on a server, it reports back information about that server to a central...
Oh, it did come up, I just missed it.
Central service. So what we have is that. So it's something I've never heard of before until I did this, and then I saw it and I was like, oh wow.
Yeah, okay. I hadn't heard of it before.
And then
either.
After I'd finished with the CTF, I was like, maybe I'll never use it.
Probably not. So initially running through the box, we tried Hydra with a few default kind of username, password things, and now thinking about it, that did actually work, didn't it? So I got ahead of myself again.
So what actually worked?
Hydra against this, didn't it? Yeah, okay. Anyway, never mind. What we're going to do is we can see that there's a guest access link. So clicking on that just to see what it does, we can see that it lets us in to the application just to fiddle around as a unprivileged read-only user, I guess. Clicking through to see what's available on here, it says that there's pretty much nothing going until we browse around and see. I actually just randomly clicked on that, not realizing that this page showed it too. We can see that there's a few different hosts on the box, and there's a Zappa's backup script running.
Yep. I will say, interesting note, a lot of products, even like enterprise products, come with guest users or default creds.
Yes.
So that's always something to look out for if you're ever working in a business and setting something up or doing a test. Is always check for that. The other thing to bear in mind is I think it's in the ISM and like IRAP and stuff like that. So the stuff that the Australian Security Directorate puts out, very, very bad thing to do. I think even PCI and stuff like that. It's all get rid of default creds. Don't have anonymous access to stuff that shouldn't need public access.
Yeah.
I suppose this is kind of like a higher level problem, the same as SNMP, which SNMP version 1 and 2 is trivial in terms of security functionality. Just don't use them.
Pretty much.
Anyway.
So browsing around the rest of the site just to see if there's anything else interesting going on. We can see that there's a agent ping, whatever this latest data is displaying to us, but it actually ran relatively recently in terms of when the box was released versus the date that it is now. So from the looks of it and from the name of the script, from the name of the whatever this is, we can assume that it's some kind of script or ping command or something that's running. I don't think I can actually do anything with it though. So, I can. Okay.
Yeah, you can ping.
So clicking this, we can see that ping and traceroute are actually scripts, and running that, does that update that date time 418? So it runs a ping. If we refresh the page to see if that updates the last check, no, it doesn't. That must be an auto run time. Well, that might be when I ran the reset the box. Anyway, so we can run, it looks like, scripts on Zipper, and then we've got this Zabbix host as well, and we can run the exact same scripts, but we can't run this Zappa's backup script. Looking around the rest of this site as a guest user, there's not a lot more we can do. So this is where we turn to Hydra to try and brute force some logins. We know, or we can guess by the name of the script, that Zappa is the name of a person or a user on the box. So we're going to use that as our username for Hydra to help speed things up, and hope we get a hit. So let's do that. First of all, so with Hydra, I don't know if this is going to autocomplete anyway. Yeah, it is. Anyway, all right. Just ignore that it's doing that. So, so the -L or lowercase l shows that we want a single username, not a username, not a list of usernames. So we're going to use Zapper for that we grabbed from the application. -P is for a password word list. So we are going to use a password word list call in user share sec lists. So if you don't have sec lists, you can apt-get install it on Kali because it doesn't come by default like I thought it did.
And you'll notice if you ever go through our write-up, sometimes the path's different. It's because I stick these things in different places to Jake.
Yes, you do.
So consider a lot of the paths in our write-ups is you need to replace it with your own unless you put it in the same place as us.
Yeah. So you can see that it's got like a 10,000 most common, 10 million most common, all sorts of different word lists. This is just in the common credentials folder. There's actually tons of them, to say it nicely. So we're just going to use the 10,000 most common, see what happens. If it doesn't work, we might bump it up. We might move on to something else. Then we want the host that we're using Hydra against, which is 10.10.10.108. Oh, not 109. The type of authentication that we're doing, or the type of attack that we want to run, if I just sign out, we can grab by intercepting a login request. So that's the wrong one. I want to tick the green one. Open up Burp because we're so organized. Yep, that's fine.
So handy dandy thing with Burp is either use like a proxy switcher so you can easily jump from using Burp to not using Burp with the one web browser.
So that's what this is.
Especially annoying when you're trying to Google stuff and test stuff in the one browser. Or you do what I do and I install Firefox Developer Edition and just leave it permanently pointed at Burp.
I do have that, but I can't remember what command I set up, what alias I set up to run it. So,
oh, good.
Anyway, so I'm just going to log in as, say, admin password. A Burp proxy intercepts the request, and we can see that we're doing a post request to /zabbix/index, and the fields that we're passing in are name for the username, password for password, and auto login equals 1 and enter equals sign in. So,
so that's form encoded.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, that's up here. Form URL located. So to do one of those in Hydra, we use the HTTP post form and pass it the path that we're posting to. In this case, as we saw in Burp, it's zabbixindex.php. Then we use a colon to separate or to add our data fields to the post request. So we've got our name is our username, and there's keywords in Hydra wrapped in carets. So doing caret user caret will mean that we're passing in the -L or -L value, which in our case is just Zapper. And password is the same, so we do caret pass caret, and that'll do anything in the -P, which will be our password list, and that's what we're actually trying to dictionary attack. After that, we just add the standard fields that are also included, just in case we need them, but we don't need to brute force those. We can just leave them as they are. The next thing we need to do is tell Hydra how to tell the difference between a successful login and a failed login. And the way we do that, I'll just turn that off for a sec, is by creating a few sample requests and seeing if there's any difference in the response. So we can see straight away that if it's an invalid login attempt, we're going to see the words login name or password is incorrect. And we can pretty safely assume that that's not going to be there if we log in successfully. So what we do then is add another semicolon, or colon, sorry, and just type in that text to say, basically, if you see this text, that login request failed. Running that, it might take a while. It's only running 10,000 requests. You can up the threads and stuff in this as well, but I don't think it handles it very well inside this VM. So I usually don't.
Hydra, we tend to find Hydra as a kind of fiddly beast. Like it can be fickle and just decide not to work.
Yeah.
So when I did this, I originally tried that list for both the username and passwords. It took forever and found absolutely nothing. But if you do it and you use the username, it should work.
Yes.
However, the correct usernames is in the list, so it should have found it. But
yeah, I'm not sure why it didn't.
Yeah, so it can be a bit finicky sometimes.
And if you get any of the syntax wrong when you're coming up with your Hydra request, it'll pretty much just say that everything works as a username password combo.
It'll either say everything works or nothing works.
Yeah.
There is no it doesn't warn you that I think your thing looks bad. I mean, how could it know? It doesn't really know anyway. It's not
exactly. It trusts that you know what you're doing, I guess.
Yeah. Is that saying 9600 to do in
25 hours.
25 hours?
400 tries.
A minute.
Yeah, looks like it.
Either that or that's 20
week.
Yeah.
In chat,
I'm thinking. I think that looks like 25 minutes. This is written really confusingly.
25 hours. Yeah, it could be 25 minutes.
Yeah.
It won't actually take that long.
Yeah.
I really hope it doesn't take that long. I don't think it does it?
As Australians, we tend to not be particularly. Well, I'm in New Zealand, but same problem. We tend to be fairly literal in interpreting like measurements of things.
Yeah.
So that's probably meant to be like 0.45 of an hour, and we go, oh yeah, but you go 00:25h. I'd start to think everything on the left is days and everything on the right is hours.
That's exactly how I read it. Yeah.
Yeah, the joys of being from down under.
From down under.
Yes. We do know the username and password though, so we can probably just.
I might just let this run in the background and jump ahead, and we can come back and see that if we had enough time, it would have got us there eventually.
For the sake of entertainment and you not having to suffer through my brilliant sense of humor. Exactly. And that's the thing, is when you think it through, it makes sense that it's 25 minutes. I was talking about I am Grub's comment thing in the comments, but when you're like me and you just see something and you interpret it on the surface, you're like, wait a second, is that 25 hours or 25 minutes? I don't know. So that's all it is. But you're probably right, it's 25 minutes. It's just we'll just jump ahead anyway to save ourselves the boredom and you having to listen to my collection of jokes.
So it ends up being a quite weak password. It's just the username again, so Zappa Zappa. And this time when we try and log in, we see we get an error message. Just ignore that. GUI access disabled. So that's different to the username and password combo failed. So that shows us that it is a valid user, it is a valid password. We just can't use this interface as a way of talking to Zabbix. So that's where we start looking for other ways to use Zabbix. We can look for, say, Zabbix exploits or...
Geez, I'm just thinking, looking at your like preview page, I think you also have to turn off Foxy Proxy.
Oh, yeah, right.
But like your like commonly accessed searches or whatever, it's hilarious. How to compile hacks.
How to compile 32-bit. That was what I was just trying to do before, yeah.
How to be a hacker. How to be a hacker. Zabbix.
How to hack.
Yeah.
How to hack Zabbix. So we can see just by looking at Zabbix exploits that there's a potential SQL injection. There's a JSON RPC API. There's... what else have we got? Something that I didn't look at. An arbitrary command execution could be interesting. Except it's on Rapid7, so it's probably part of Metasploit, which we don't want to use.
So when we were looking... So I looked at the CVE database there was a bunch for this particular version, and the counterintuitive thing is this RPC thing didn't show up there, but it shows up on ExploitDB. But basically, rule of thumb when you're looking is there should be a version of the application that's affected, and you see if the application running is in the same kind of version range, and there might be a vulnerability. Not all vulnerabilities are exploitable. Like, I remember I found an Nginx one in a test ages ago, but it had to be configured in a particular way on top of running a particular version. But this is a good place to start, and they're always relative. I've always found that the stuff on ExploitDB is relatively quick to get up and running.
Yeah, it is. They're usually pretty good kind of proof of concepts or explanations of what you have to do. So
I do like the fact that the number of people watching the stream jumps up to 8 or 9 and then back to 7, which means there's random people. What did you set this to? Programming? There's random people coming like, oh, I want to learn about programming. Oh, no, it's like just people hacking. I don't want to,
Yeah, ExploitDB is curated and run by Offensive Security.
Yeah. You look at, and then you look at a lot of Rapid7 stuff too, and a lot of their stuff is like straight from ExploitDB. So,
okay, so looking through the list on SearchBlade, which is basically the command line version of ExploitDB, we can see that there's an exploit that gives us remote code execution for quite a broad range of versions. So we'll start off by giving that a look.
Yep.
This one.
And we're in that version range, I think. I think we were having this conversation the other day when we were doing the write-up. That the versioning, the fact that everyone does their versioning slightly differently, like this is 3.0.21. And some companies do their versioning like you would decimal numbers, so 0.3 is higher than 0.21, whereas others treat it like it's just an integer by itself, so 0.21 is above 0.3, because 21's higher than 3. In this case, I wasn't 100% sure how they did it, because there's some inconsistencies in some of the other ones found, but anyway, this one gets us where we need to go. And
exactly. The fact that this is run by a fairly reputable company, that if it gets onto ExploitDB, you can fairly trust that it's a safe script to run. Whereas something you download off GitHub could claim to be an exploit when really it's malware that attacks a dumb script kiddie or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we use -m to mirror the file. So now we've got a local copy of the 39937 exploit. Looking into it, just to see what it does, we can see that it takes a few variables for a Zabbix IP address and the API JSON RPC PHP file, which it tells us not to edit. Then we get asked for some logins and a host ID. The rest of it looks like it's authenticating to the API. Then it looks like it dumps a command shell straight to us based on that, and the while true just means it'll infinitely loop. So it'll take a command that we enter, call the JSON RPC, and it looks like it updates a script on the server. So for example, that ping script that we found, it's going to run, update that script, then it'll try and execute that script and print us out the results. And that's how it gives us the code execution.
Yeah.
And then
so in this case, this code execution is almost just as a function of the way the application runs.
Yeah. This is a feature, not a bug.
So some of the stuff on ExploitDB is that. It's just this is why monitoring software, to put it like monitoring software and build infrastructure. So especially if you're like a development shop and you're using CI/CD pipelines with build agents that kind of build your Java apps, and then stick them in an artifact repository to get shipped out wherever. those build agents also have a lot of useful stuff. And normally the CI/CD infra will just let you run whatever you want script-wise on the build agent as root.
Yeah.
Yes. In this case, I don't think we're root, but we can certainly get some interesting stuff from the server.
It runs under the context of whatever's running Zabbix in this case. But yes, a lot of the times they are configured to run as root because they need a lot of high-level privileges.
Yep.
So to get the rest of the values that we need for this script, we go back in as a guest and just run the ping command, or the ping script that we found earlier. We can see that this gives us a host ID of 10.10.6.
So this, I think
script
that
ID of 1.
That host ID is different depending on the region you're in, because I had like 10.
No, I think it's the host. So I ran this against the zipper host and we get 10.10.6. But then if you run it against this host, you should get the 10.10.5.
Okay, yeah. All good. I ran my stuff against 10.10.5 and it still worked.
So it all depends if we want to start running commands against the zipper host or the Zabbix host.
Anyway.
We ran it against 5, I think. So
good.
because Zabbix has Zap as backup script, we'll choose that as a host. So we've got 10.10.5 as the, actually let's update this stuff too because I haven't done that yet. It was Zappa, wasn't it? And 10.10.5. 10.10, that's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let me just double check. Yeah, 10.10.5, script ID 1, so we know that the rest of this exploit that runs against script 1 and updates script 1 will actually be updating that ping command, so that should all be fine now. That should all be good.
Give it a whirl.
We might need to add the Zabbix root needs to actually be, because we're not, it's not installed to the root directory, it's installed to 10.10.108/Zabbix. So the URL that it builds will be /Zabbix/API-JSON-RPC. So
this is just using requests, and I think later on there's another step you have to muck around with the APIs, and I scripted it up in a similar way, so I can run through that.
So then we try and run it, see what happens. And it gives us a command shell. If we look at, say, who am I? We get a response of Zabbix. And just to show what it's been doing in the background, if we refresh this execute script ID 1, we can see that it's changed the ping request to our who am I command that I just entered.
Very nice.
Yeah. So now that we've got access to the box a bit, we can take a look around, see where we're running from. That looks like the root of the file system. We move on to a bit of other enumeration, so we know that at least Zabbix is a user on the box. We could do things like cat the pass2vd file.
I just call it password, but
password password.
I think because an old school POSIX or Unix or Linux, the passwords used to be in here, and then they created the shadow file.
Yeah.
And moved the passwords to that. So this is really just for like user information now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Zabbix, the user that we currently are, actually has no login. What else can we see on here? Nothing too interesting. MySQL. There's www.data and a root. So there's actually not a lot too interesting on there. There's no...
On this particular host.
Yes,
so
on this particular host.
Just to clarify, there is 2 hosts in this one. It's a bit like some of the other boxes where there are actually multiple hosts in play. So that can get a bit confusing.
Yeah, so we can run those exact commands again against a different host and see what we get. Oh, I need to go into insert mode. And then run that again. And this time if who am I? I'm still running a Zabbix. But this time if I look at the plus 2ED, I still get
Yeah, I think
Zabbix.
we've overthought that somehow.
I think we did, yeah. I don't think they're actually any different.
No, but they're, yeah. So I think we end up back on the same box because the box we're running on the box the scripts run on, not the actual.
Yeah, these run on this, not on. They don't run against the host. They just run
Yeah,
on the Zabbix
Yeah.
server, maybe.
that'd be what, because there is another box with a different user.
Yeah, there is.
That comes up later.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're interested in a particular folder.
Yeah, so looking at the root file system again, we can see that straight off the bat, backups doesn't look normal. If I look at my own, pretty sure there's nothing too bad on here. Yeah, but there's no
Yeah.
Wait, there's no backups.
What's that folder? What's that folder that says Jacob's Secret Picture Collection?
Nothing. We'll just get rid of that. So that's something that's unusual, and backups are always fun to get access to because they can have who knows what in them. So let's cd into that backups folder. Oops,
try CD,
that's
mate.
not going to work. I wanted to calm my backups. If we run an ls now,
You can't CD.
oh no, you can't see that
Yeah.
because we're not in a full shell. We're going to ls the /backups folder. There we go. See, it was so convincing I thought we were in a real shell. And we have two folders. One that's a
2 files, mate.
2 files. Man, it's been a long day. 2 files. We've got a backup of the scripts and we've got a Zapper backup. Now that we've got these files, we've got to figure out if there's anything we can do to either pull those off, or because they're 7-zips, maybe we can just extract them where they are. It looks like we have root. If I just lsla here, it looks like we have full permissions on the backups directory, so chances are good that we can extract these. It had to have created these somehow, so we're assuming that it's going to have 7-zip installed, and the command to export is, or extract, is 7ze for extract /backups, and we'll start from the top, and we know we should have permission to access this one. Running that through, we can see that it asks for a password, but it does have a backup script.sh in it, which is always interesting. Looking at the other one, 7ze /backups where to go? This one. Copy. We can see the same thing. It's asking for a password. So, without knowing what this password is, there's not a lot we can do right now. So we keep enumerating around the box.
Well, I suppose one of the interesting things to note, if you look back at Zabbix, and this is part of learning to infer things from what you see, like context and apps, and learning enough to kind of be able to guess at stuff. Zapper's backup script, that job running on the Zabbix box, which is a box I'm sure are on, tells me that maybe, just maybe, it's a regular job that runs on this server.
Yes. To perform backups.
Yeah.
And we know that the zip contains a backup.sh file, and we know that .sh files are scripts. So what we can do from here is use our find command to see if we can find anything with a name that starts with .sh. Now this is pretty broad because there could be a buttload of them, but it'll be the most accurate way to find in case it's not called backup or anything like that. So we'll pipe any errors to dev null, so that'll hide all of the directories and stuff we don't have permission to read, and let that run. And we can see that there are a few different script files that we have access to, and one of them is backup_script.sh. So doing our just search for a file called backup.sh wouldn't have worked, because, well, it wouldn't have found this particular script because it has got a different name. Out of all of those, this one sounds like the most interesting to look at, so let's cat that out and see what it's doing.
Oh, would you look at that?
Look at that.
Password.
Zappa wanted a way to back up his script, so here it is. 7z8, create an archive, blah blah blah. The -p, if you're not familiar with 7-zip command line, -p is the password to encrypt encrypt a file with, and then where to dump the file. So handy
point of learning here, as we sometimes like to do. When you're developing an app, and in this case it's like an automation job, but same sort of deal, you've got to worry about like secrets. So you'd put this under the category of secrets management. How do I hide the things that I want to keep secret? Classic cases, people put stuff in source code that they shouldn't. So AWS API keys, database passwords, database names, internal IPs, especially companies that publish some of their internal code open source externally, like a place I worked at wanted to. We looked through code and we found internal IPs and stuff in there, which would be a potentially useful resource for a bad guy to do some recon. So managing doing this properly, maybe doing it as an environment variable would be a step up from this, because it's not in a config file, but all an attacker has to do is to know to echo out all of the environment variables to find the password, at least if they're in the same context as the user running the script. Otherwise, it's a lot of complicated stuff to kind of manage, and at the end of the day, you still have to have a password somewhere. But doing something like this, if you're not properly securing that particular script so that only the right users can see it, then it's a bit of a problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so in this case, it's creating the Zabbix scripts backups, which we can assume is this one. So we know the command line syntax is exactly the same, -p for the password. So we're just going to add that to our zip, our 7-zip command, because this is a non-interactive shell. So when it prompts us for a password, we don't have a chance to enter it. So we handily enough can enter it at the command line and it'll automatically enter that in. Actually, I didn't set an output, so that was my bad. We need to... Oh no. I control-C'd.
Ugh.
So we want to -O for output it, and we're going to output it to temp.
No space.
Oh, it cares about the space.
Yeah, from memory, yeah.
Just to a random folder that we created that we have permissions on. And now we can see that everything is okay. That's what we like to see.
Oh, nice.
Yep. Now that we have it extracted, we look at what we've got, and we've got backup_script.sh, a new one. Is that new? Let's find out. Those guys, backup_script. If I can type. Okay, and that's no different.
Yeah. There is that other zip file though.
Nice. There is another zip file though. So let's hope there's a bit of password reuse going on. Copy that. And then 7z-e. Actually, I should copy this first. Copy, paste, then copy. Grab that again. Copy, paste. Is it going to let me go backwards? No. Okay. I gotta... Oh, it doesn't even let me backspace. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Except that needs to have a directory attached to it. Backup / that. We want to owe it to temp those guys. And that should work.
Oh yeah,
there's
it's not
no
dash
dash.
mate, it's just a...
Damn it. Everything else is a dash.
Why can't life be easy, man?
I know. Where's the consistency? Okay. And we can see that that password also worked for this file. And everything is okay. LSLA on temp. Those guys. And this time we get a few more scripts. So we've got another backup script. Just going to copy that for convenience. Cat that / backup.sh just to see if there's anything different in there. And we can see that it isn't. And then we've got this Zabbix service. And if we try and cat that,
it's going to be an ELF file.
We get elf, which is weird for cat to say, isn't it? I thought it would have just catted out. Oh, unless it can't print those binary characters.
Yeah. So anyway, we get to a point where, and this is the fun bit about some of these boxes, we've just gone on a massive loop and not really achieved anything.
Yeah.
So this doesn't get us anywhere particularly useful. So from here,
we can get the file off from here, but I won't demo that.
We didn't find much utility in it. Utility in it. So the next step is to look back and kind of, now that we've followed that rabbit hole, and there's an element of learning how far you should follow rabbit holes before going, nah, I'm done. I'm going to look at the next thing. So now we go back to Zabbix, and it's like, well, what else is there here? Given our user can create scripts on the server.
So we know that our Zapper user has a decent level of permissions on the box. So now
and the way in the write-up was the way we originally did it. So we went and did a whole couple of extra steps that I don't think we actually have to do, all things considered.
Yeah.
But we're going to go through them anyway. So we went and we're like, well, given we can access the API, can we just change our own permissions as that user so we can actually log in and be an admin?
Yes.
So actually looking at their doco, they have a user example, I think it's user.login. They have an example for an admin user and what group they need to be in to be an admin.
So admin, response,
scroll down.
Requesting an auth response. This tells us
further down. So this is like, give us all the user data, and it's where is it? User group. Oh no, user type. There's somewhere in there.
Type 3.
Type.
I think there's also there is just a groups, isn't there?
Yeah, there's some groups info. Oh, user groups. The next one under user. Down further. No, down.
Oh, user group.
User group.
Yeah. So we can do user group get to see what all of the user groups are, I'm pretty sure.
So it tells us there that, and so I saw, where is it? User group ID 12, no access to the front end, GUI access to. I'm assuming that's the group the current user we've got in. Yes. So to get ourselves GUI access and be admin at the same time, in theory we should.
Unfortunately, our write-up hasn't been published yet because we were slack and didn't polish it. It's just a bunch of ramblings that we haven't quite finished.
So the fun bit about it is we started to do the write-up on Saturday. Was it Saturday or Friday night?
Friday night, I think, yeah.
And Jake had to go off and do something, and I couldn't remember how we did this box. And so I was blindly stumbling around. This because we did this before we took notes, really. Yeah. And so I had like the slightest whiff of gas to go on in terms of how to do this. And so it took a lot of poking around to remember. When you start doing these boxes on the reg, they all just blur and you start doing the... So I went down a path of trying to do a bunch of random libc injection that got me nowhere, and then Jake's like, oh yeah, I did it like this. It's like, of course, that's how you did it. So the write-up, we'll aim for it to be out by the weekend, but we'll probably spend a little bit of time after the stream polishing it up if we don't go too late. Anyway, So if you go and grab if you go and look at the write-up, the draft write-up, Jake,
Yep.
not you guys,
I got it.
it's in a secret place.
I
So
got it.
I wrote a Python script. So what it does is authenticates the API. I'm noticing there are some challenges with quotes.
Yeah.
Where is it decided? Oh,
Is that I didn't think that was a comment in Python, is it?
yeah, that's a comment. Oh no, that's interesting because that should be hashes.
Yeah. I thought they were hashes.
No, I think it might be a comment as well, but I think Python might understand that as a comment. But anyway, that is frustrating.
If I do that, will it like refix the highlighting? No.
No. I swear
No, don't open that.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's all messed up.
So what did you do in Nano?
Oh, I just opened it in Nano to see if it was any different.
Anyway,
that just works though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it works, unless it's converted from hashes to double slashes at some point.
That's right. We're about to find out.
The problem is I've been doing a lot of C and .NET, and so I've been double slashing. Anyway, let's not get too far into that. All this thing does is authenticates to the API as our user. So that's that. So I'm using the requests library, handy utility library to use, especially when you're like pen testing APIs, because you can just chuck requests together and chain them up super quick. So all this thing does, go through and do that while I'm talking through it. All it does is I'm building a dictionary with the login parameters based on the API.go. Because this is using JSON RPC, it's a particular format, so it's not quite the same as REST. You just call the one endpoint, but in your actual request body, you're saying, I want to use this function, so method user.login. And then parameters, and then I'm passing through the parameters, setting the headers, because you need to set the headers, and then just doing a post request. It gets the login stuff back, pretty prints it out so that you can look through it if you have to, pulls out the auth. It's not really a token, it's just a session ID that you have to stick in further requests.
Pretty much, yeah.
Build parameters for updating ourselves. So we're user ID 3, we want to be in the admin group. Build the second request. I tried just reusing the first object without redefining it like that, and it did not work. So I had to do that. And then printing it out again, and then going and doing it. So, and that probably took me I'd say 10-15 minutes. I was going to say 3 or 4 minutes. It did not take me 3 or 4 minutes. 10-15.
Is that a Python 3 one?
Python wrong. Yeah, it's Python 3. You spelled Python wrong. Correct.
One hand types faster than the other.
And so that's similar to how the actual exploit works, except the exploit's calling a couple of different APIs.
Yeah, and turning itself into a shell.
That updated us. So this step is redundant because the actual exploit script lets you just arbitrarily update scripts, so we could have just reverse shelled at that point. But
oh yeah,
you know,
and
I figured that out before you, and of course I feel like an idiot for that because I was like, wait a second, this thing already changes scripts as that user. We could have just changed the script anyway.
Well, while this was still active, to be more inconspicuous, I actually used the API to create my own those guys user, and that's why when we log out,
so
you can see that I've saved some creds here, but I created a new user in the admin group so that this Zapper was still restricted in case anyone else came along.
So while a box is active, you're probably better off taking the opportunity to create a new user. Given that this box is retired, in a corporate scenario, it depends on if they're alerting. Are they alerting on new user creations, or are they alerting on changes to existing users? Most of the time, they don't do either because it's hard to log. Especially in legacy environments, but most of the time you'd be looking for new users rather than changes to user permissions, or you'd prioritize one over the other in terms of alerting badness. Ideally, you'd look for things getting elevated to admin, but
Yeah.
anyway.
So we know that the script worked because now using the Zappa creds, we can actually log into the GUI front end and see a whole lot more data than we could before.
Yeah, and this isn't hacking. This is literally just writing a script to call an API.
Yes, this is using the built-in functionality of the application.
And surprisingly enough, there is a percentage of pen tests that literally involve using an application as intended and going, this is badly written.
Yes.
The intent of this application is problematic. Anyway. Next.
Once we're logged in, we have an extra menu item at the top. Just get rid of that stuff now. For administrating stuff. And now we get access to actually what looks like read and create our own scripts. So if we look at creating a brand new script to see what options we have, we've got the type of script that it's going to run. We'll just leave that as a default script.
Yeah, don't have a clue what IPMI is.
We'll call it those guys script. Yeah, I've got no idea. I didn't even bother to look it up. Do we want to execute it on an agent or the server? We've already been running command line stuff against the server and noticed that there's nothing too interesting from what we could tell. So this is why the other scripts, no matter which ID you used, ran on the same server. Was because it was running on the same server that the Zabbix application was running on. So if we run it on the agent sitting on the server will run the script. So this is, you can start doing some remote management. But by the time you're doing that, you might as well use something like Ansible or Puppet. Exactly.
Or SaltStack.
Yeah.
But use Ansible.
Well, let's just look up some reverse shell cheat sheets. So we've got our script. We've got our different user groups that I guess have permission to run this script. We're going to say Zabbix admins because we know that we are a Zabbix admin.
And we don't want other users to be able to run the scripts.
No. We're going to say that it can run on any host and give it write permissions. Why not? The next thing we need to do is actually give it a command to run. As always, as hackers, we want a reverse shell. So I'm just going to set up a listener while I remember. And man, Pentest Monkey is slow.
That's the second time you've said that today, man.
Well, because it is. Look at how long this is taking.
Yeah, I know. But exactly the same inflections. You just revertigoed me to like 2 hours ago when you were like, man, Pentest Monkey is slow.
Pentest Monkey.
I mean, we have what reverse shell we're after anyway.
I should just look at the case.
It's in the doco. It's in the draft.
I must have skipped it. No, it's not.
Oh, okay. No, it's not. Ignore me then.
Also, one of our images have failed.
Oh, freaking Confluence.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on Atlassian products.
Screw it. I'm looking at the Google Cache because that's instant compared to their stupid thing. So, we can try a bunch of different shells or reverse shells. After trying a lot of these, we already know what we're after, so we're just going to update it. But this was a bit of trial and error as well. 443, just getting the right payload in here to get a reverse shell. 10, 10, 14, 22. You could put anything in here, like a interpreter session or something like that if you want, but we like to do things manually. I think that's right, but I have a feeling that I did a bunch of stuff in the background too. So we have our script. All we need now is the script ID, which is 4.
Yep, I didn't even do that. If you go to inventory, I think.
Oh, did you run it from the front end?
Yeah, it just ran it from the front end. So if you go to inventory, hosts, if we didn't change this user so we could log in, then you'd have to run it using the API, or just update that like exploit script.
Hosts or back on this one?
No, so you want to go to dashboard. Oh no, inventory. Go to inventory up the top. Go to reports. That's right. This is weird. I still don't get what this thing actually is meant to do effectively. Now you want to go to reports and then go availability report. And then...
Man, what a clunky interface.
Now right-click on zipper. No, okay, you can't run scripts from here yet. Click on the event. And then go all. So you know the timeline. 5, 15, 30, 1 hour, 2 hours. All the way to the right, there's an all. Click that. Effort duck. Oh.
I was going to say this isn't how I did it, but that's okay.
No. Go back to events. And go all. Oh no, don't. That just gets us back to... Go to reports. I will get this right. This will happen. Go to reports. Wait for it to load. Go to availability report. Yep, that one. Enjoy this, everybody. This is like top-notch streaming. Any of the zipper ones that were the one we just didn't do. So that one maybe. And then go all, and why is there no data found? There was somewhere I went to find the host and I was able to right click. What was the one you were on before where you could right click on the host and get the scripts to run?
That was in monitoring latest data.
Oh.
But there's nothing here anymore. It throws an error.
Damn you. Okay, we'll do it your way.
Well, I just used the API to...
Well, if I look at the... Well, in my write-up, what did I do? I went to the availability report, opened an event for Zipper, and I was just able to run it. But, yeah, the fact you couldn't find any events is a bit annoying.
Yeah. So, basically, what we're going to do this time is pretty much the exact same thing as all of this. Yeah, that's user.update, print that, update response, update info. Let's just... Can I copy paste from Vim just by selecting like that?
I forget what the copy paste is in Vim.
It's not just Control Shift C.
No, that does other stuff. Hang on a second. Copy. It's the problem when you're not quite enough of a Vim user. So D is cut. Cool. V to select characters or uppercase V to select whole. Oh, okay, just doing that. Oh no, if you press DD, you'll delete. Press escape. And then type DD.
Yeah.
DD again. Again. Just keep doing that.
But I don't want to delete them.
Oh, you didn't? What did you want to do?
No, I want to copy paste them.
What do you mean paste them?
Like copy them and then paste them.
Where do you want to paste them? Don't you want to get rid of... Sorry, everybody. Mum and Dad are having an argument.
All right.
Just do what you got to do.
All right, let's just quit without saving. Vim in again. Screw this. Instead of... What I was going to do was keep everything here, but just add another call to the API, but screw it. Now what we're going to do is look back at our API that I didn't think we needed. And we want the 3.0 because we're on 3.0. And we're going to look for the method called scripts execute. So we've already created our script. We know it's there. All we need to do now is execute it. And we've got all the stuff that we need. So we're going to change.
Yeah, you just want to change that to script.execute. And in the update param, so you can just paste in, but actually copying and pasting inside Vim is different commands. Like there's Y and like you've got to select an area.
And then I'm just going to update your commands.
Yeah.
So script ID we know was 4, wasn't it? And the host ID was 10, 10, 5.
Yep.
So now, instead of updating our user into an admin, this will execute the script that we just made through the front end. I was going to write that out into a separate Python script, but having a fight over the DD. We always fight over the DD.
Cool, that's right. You use V to select characters, uppercase V, this is in the command mode in Vim, uppercase V to select whole lines, and then you select how much you want to do, and then you press Y, and Y does copy, or D cuts, and then you move to where you want to go, and then you press, like, it's P, and it'll paste after the cursor, or capital P to paste before. So I just keep forgetting how to do it in Vim because I use it enough when I'm in the terminal, but I normally don't really have to copy paste stuff, or I'm copying stuff from outside in. You've gone silent.
Yeah, because I'm thinking. That's
oh, right.
So that didn't
you were
work.
so silent, and the noise cancelling kicked in, and I was like, I can't hear anything.
Oh.
Anyway.
Yeah, so it is script ID 4. Okay, so...
Yeah. Should be that.
14.
The parameters... Is there anything else there that needs to change?
No, it's just script ID, host ID.
The auth should be fine. Yep, that should run. pp.pprint request parameters update. Yeah, give that a run.
So we got an auth token. We sent a request, and it said app error. Get value from agent failed. Can't connect to localhost 1050 connection refused. So that's that port that we were having.
Oh, that's what that is. That's the agent port.
So that's the, yeah, okay.
No, it's one cannot connect to... Hang on a second.
What we can do is go back to... Maybe the guest. So
I had to do something here.
This is the stuff where I think I had to set the group on the script. So, hang on, let me just do this again. So, Zappa. Sorry, this is what happens when we don't fully prepare for what is about to come. Looking at config hosts, we can see that we've got 2 hosts, and one is on 127.0.0 and one's on 172.17, which is the 10.106, and 10.105 is the local host. So if I just quickly change this from 10.105 to 10.106 just to see if we get a different output. Why did I do that? Oh. Python 3, run it again. This time we don't get an error. Here we do. Timeout while we're executing script. Oh, look, we've got a shell.
Bam, problem solved.
But who are we? I think this is the right box.
Yeah, if you do etc password. So yeah, that's how we can check.
Yes. So
yeah,
now we've got a bunch more data.
Yeah.
Cool. Now that we have a shell, we're going to upgrade it slightly. I say slightly because it's not fully interactive, because I couldn't be bothered killing all of my ZSH stuff and making it work properly. Python-C, not B. Import pty.spawn bin bash.
Bin/bash.
Oh. Oh no, and I ballsed it up. That's that'll just fail. So
yeah. So all we're doing here is most reverse shells drop you into bin sh. They don't tend to work too well. Sometimes you can get bash, but sometimes you can't. So you need commas, quotes. So all this does is this will use Python to drop us in a
Python. It's Python 3.
Yeah, to drop us in a bash session. Drop us in a bash, or whatever else we want.
Yeah. There we go. Similar fights, just with you and Vim. That sounds about right. That's why I don't really use it. I'm getting better though. I'm starting to use it.
What's the joke? There was this one on Twitter, and this guy's like, I finally exited Vim, and he smashed his computer up with a hammer. I just wasn't sure what Jake was trying to do. I thought you were just going to delete all that and rewrite your own. And it's like, no, I just was going to rename some variables to make it work. It's like, that makes sense.
Okay, so we can see on this that we're still the Zabbix user with no login, but this time we actually have a Zapper user on home Zapper and a root user and everyone else. So
I suppose first thing to do, I suppose we could start doing enumeration, but we've already done a bit of enumeration, although on another box, not this one.
Yeah.
But that said, we've got a user called Zapper, and we've got a password. Remember, for that 7-zip file. So what sometimes happens in CTFs as you start to learn the metagame of it is a password that comes up earlier that doesn't necessarily serve much purpose, or even just a unique string, shows up later as a password for something. Mischief was like that as well.
Yeah.
There was a password for a username and password, but that password didn't work for that user, it worked for a different one. So sometimes you have to just get creative with this stuff and remember it exists.
Yeah, I've got something locally that I can easily grab it. Yeah, so
we're
Zabbix, but we want to be Zapper. So we try some password reuse and just su to the Zapper user, giving it that zippity doodah password, and we can see that we are now escalated up to the Zapper user. LSing now, we can not cat head-c8 user.
Again, some of this stuff comes down to knowing the CTF metagame, which if you do normal gaming at all, you kind of get the idea of metagaming. Like in Counter-Strike, you know to always go a particular gun because it's better than the rest and it's powerful and can shoot through doors. Or you know where to hide and to listen for, so you can... This is the Office map, and I always used to go with the sniper rifle that could shoot through doors, hide there, wait for footsteps, shoot, kill dudes, get accused of hacking. This is no different. Is once you start to learn kind of some of the tropes of CTFing, it gets easy, except for when you stumble across boxes that deliberately subvert that. Yeah. So what Jake's doing at the moment is, now that we're Zapper, he has an SSH key on the server.
So we notice, that there's an SSH folder, and looking in there, they were dumb enough to hide their private key there for us to steal.
So the safe way, here's a handy aside. The safe way, so you've got a Linux server, you've got your laptop that you use to dev stuff and manage stuff. You're better off generating your SSH keys locally on your computer and moving the public key into the authorized keys file on the server, so that it never leaves your computer. Generating them on the server means that if someone gets on the server, they can take them and use them. I, in the write-up, which we'll put up, actually did it the other way around and put my own key there, but both ways work. And in theory, he might reuse that key elsewhere as well. SSH keys are an easy thing to do the wrong thing with.
Yeah.
And also you need to set them to a permission that lets no other user on the on your box access the key. So 600 means the owner of the key can, I think, read, and that's it. So read the key, and no one else can access it at all.
So we have read write, but no one else does.
Oh yeah, six is right. That's right. Read write. 7 is read write execute. Cool. And we're in, and
So-
we have a better shell.
Now we just have that was basically a better way to upgrade our shell. Yeah, so we can kill this one now.
Yeah.
Just quickly touching back on the Hydra, we can see it finally finished. It doesn't say how long it took. We'd probably just have to calculate it ourselves, but
Oh no, it says when it finished. If you have a look,
yeah, when
finished
it finished.
at
Not how
2038,
long
and
it took.
Hydra
though.
starting at 2020, so it took 18 minutes.
Oh, yeah, 2020.
Yeah.
So about 18 minutes to find it. Just close everything. All right, cool. So now we're on the box with a good shell. We've got that backup stuff that we've already looked at, so I think we can ignore that. We've already grabbed a copy of the user.txt in our other shell, so we don't need to really worry about that either. Because this is a Linux box with space, we ran things like linenum.sh and a few other scripts just to do some basic enumeration of the file system, to see if there was anything running or any other exploits or services running that we might be able to exploit. And we end up falling on the good old sticky bit. So to look for sticky bits on a file system, we do find slash and use the permission -4000. There's also, I think it's like -perm capital S or something as sticky bit, but I always just remember 4000 better.
So so sticky bits, we refer to them from time to time, and I think we've explained them before.
Yeah.
But effectively, it used to be you just have the 3 kind of octets for permission. So what the owner of the file can do, what this people in the same group as the owner of the file can do, and what every other user on the system can do with the file.
Yeah.
But you start to run into problems with how you manage. I've got a utility that needs to run as root, but I don't want to give users on the box root level permissions or the ability to sudo or whatever. So the idea of the sticky bit was it runs with the permissions and runs as the owner who created the file and set the bit. So so if root's the owner of the Vim binary, when you run Vim will run as you. If the sticky bit's set on Vim, especially older versions of Vim, because newer versions, I think they've worked their way around it. But older versions of Vim with that sticky bit set, when you run it, you are running Vim as root, and you can save a file anywhere on the file system. So it's effectively like ghetto kind of privileged access in a way.
Yeah.
Capabilities is a newer thing, which is better, but it doesn't seem to be commonly used. But either way, avoid sticky bits.
Yeah. And things
we're about
like
to see why.
so things like ping and stuff use it because you need to be at that higher level to access ICMP and that kind of network level functions, and so that's why a lot of these out of the box applications have sticky bits set.
And in all of those binaries, most of them are safe. So ping, you can't get any sort of code execution with ping. SU, you can't get any sort of code execution with SU. You have to know a user's password to be able to do anything with it. And most of them are like that. And GTFO bins, handy utility for telling you if you can do anything with a utility with, inappropriate permissions added to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So say we had something like, I don't know, GIMP on there that had a sticky bit set, we'd be able to do all sorts of things like gain a full shell as root, essentially. So yeah, GTFO bins is a handy site to refer to when you find any sticky bit binaries. All of these are safe, except we see one non-standard binary in home zapper util zabbix service. which is the file that we saw in the backup that we extracted with our fake shell. Or it looks like that file anyway. So let's head over there and see what's in it. Zabbix. Zappa, not Zabbix.
Yeah, Zappa, mate.
We've been saying Zabbix too much.
Yeah, man.
Utils
and Zabbix service.
So we can see we've got our backup script and Zabbix service.
Yeah. So when you're trying to kind of get an idea of what a binary does, there's a few options. So you could either try and decompile it, you could just try and run it. You can do the file and it'll give you some idea about what it is. So that's how we know this is binary, because it tells us it's an ELF.
It's a 32-bit ELF. Yeah.
If I could remember, so ELF's kind of like I think it's kind of like a binary format or an executable binary format. That's what I think the F stands for. And I know Windows uses something else entirely, which is why you don't have out-of-the-box like binary compatibility between the two. You need Wine on Linux and you need other stuff on Windows, or normally Cygwin, which just is the POSIX utilities compiled for Windows.
Yeah.
But all good. In this case, it's an ELF file, which means it runs something. So if you try and run it, that's all it lets us do. So presumably, it lets us do something with Zabbix.
Yeah. It lets us start or stop the Zabbix service.
Yeah.
Seems reasonable.
If we run so one of the quicker things to do before you start trying to reverse, like decompile an app, because sometimes decompiled code is not easy to look through, is just to especially for CTFs, just do a strings.
Yeah. I won't do that. Never mind.
Yeah, you can
I was going to
ltrace
trace it, but that's it's pointless for this one in particular. It doesn't demo anything that we...
Yeah, so strings and ltrace are two really easy ways to kind of look at what an application's doing. So ltrace is fairly powerful, but at the basic level, it will literally just kind of show you what the application's processing through, and let you input things when the binary wants you to input.
Yeah.
It's like I refer to it using it as like a ghetto debugger. It does. I'm pretty sure it's more powerful than that. I'm pretty sure
it pretty much is a ghetto debugger with tracing, so it'll give you different, like it'll print out all of the memory addresses and all of the background code that it has decompiled and thinks it's running, sort of thing. So, and
then strings just looks for strings.
Any printable string in the file, basically. Yeah.
So we've got a few. So we see it's got a bunch of obviously like imports and function names. I think their CXA finalize and stuff like that are all just blocks of stuff. I forget exactly what they are. But interestingly enough, we've got systemctl daemon reload and systemctl start Zabbix agent, and then under that systemctl stop Zabbix agent. Given that we've got start or stop, then start, then that systemctl, then stop, then that systemctl, this looks like it's probably in an if block, and it's just giving us the strings from that if block. So if it's start, do this. If it's stop, do this. And else, if it's something else entirely, freak out and die.
Yeah. And so we know
systemctl or system control is a utility for starting and stopping services.
And it's a bash utility that we can run directly against the command line.
Yeah. So it's similar to if you've used service. It's like a more, easily manageable form of a init script. If you've used those before, I think you define .services. I think service might also just be like some sort of alias for it. I don't know. I've never really gone deep into how this side of things works. But at a high level, systemctl lets you manage other services, or system control.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this probably indicates... So I will say the thought process I had initially when I was trying to do this on Saturday when I'd forgotten how we'd done this is I thought, let's do what we did on... Was it Dab?
Dab, yeah.
Yeah, it was Dab. Where I would trick the thing into running my own libc.so. So libc is like just a bunch of core C functionality that you can load up to do fundamental tasks. I tried doing that and failed and pulled my hair out until I gave up and did something else on Friday night. But there is actually the way we actually did do it, which is because system control is just a binary, you can control where the shell is going to look for binaries, and it's got a SEWID bit. And the Zabbix, what's it called again? Zabbix start.
Yeah.
Shit. It's my turn to do a swear this week. Zabbix service. That's right. That's what it's called. We'll just take the path variables and stuff in. We can make it use a different system control.
Yeah. So when you type something directly into the command line, like say our Python 3, what it will do is look at our path variable and look in all of these directories to see if there is a binary that matches that, and then run it.
This is why when you're in a folder and there's a binary in there that you want to run and you just type its name, it goes, I can't find the binary, and then you have to do the // because without the // it's going, I'm going to look in all the locations I think I've been told that binaries are, which is all of those things.
Yes.
And the / specifically says it's here.
Yeah.
Relative, in the same directory.
Yeah.
So what we can do is stick a system control binary in a directory we control, add that to the path, and then make this Zabbix service run our binary instead of the real one. And because Zabbix service has the SEWID bit, it will run our binary as root.
As root, yeah.
Yeah.
So the way we do that is actually exactly the same as the way that we did dab. So our code for our exploit is literally a basic C.
It's hardly even an exploit.
Not really, yeah. It's super common pretty much everywhere when you look up SEWID exploits. It's like the go-to script. So when this code runs, it'll set your group and user IDs to 0, which is root, and then it'll run bash, and that's literally all it does.
Also, it'll set its own user ID and group ID to that, and then it'll spawn another process, bash, and that process you will then be dropped into.
Yeah, so these only work if you have, like you were saying, if the binary that calls this has the sticky bits set. So the set UID and set user ID and set group ID functions are like kernel functions, and they're protected, and so only root can run them. Otherwise, you just pick up whatever user ID you are. So so you can call set UID, but the only UID you can actually use is your own. Yeah. So because I'm running a 64-bit VM, by default, if I just compile this with GCC straight away and we do a file on systemctl, we can see that it's a 64-bit ELF, which we know isn't going to run on 32-bit systems. And when we filed this binary on the system, it was telling us that it's a 32-bit binary. So the way that we compile it as a 32-bit app is with the -m32, which I guess changes the mode to 32-bit mode. I'm guessing that's what M means. M always means mode.
Yeah.
So now if we file that systemctl, we get a 32-bit ELF, which is what we want. Now all we have to do is copy that file over onto the server. Because we've got SSH access, we can use SCP to copy that over. SCP uses basically the same syntax. We discussed it last week, the week before.
Yeah, so basically...
left is your side, right is where you want to dump it.
Yeah.
And you change the semicolon I think, was it? If you're downloading or uploading, something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, so on the left side, you've got the file
something
you
like
want
that.
to either. So that's the file you want to action, and on the right hand side, you've got the place you want to put it. So in this case, we're pushing, and just if you're pushing to a remote box, you have to specify what user is at that remote box that you're trying to push to. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So if we were trying to pull something from that box locally, you'd have the user specification locally.
I'm just going to dump it there.
Yeah.
If we were trying to hide ourselves, we could like make a directory in temp those guys, or put it on dev shm or something like that, so it's in memory rather than on the disk.
Yeah.
So screw it. Now that I've made it, I'm just going to put it there. Temp those guys systemctl. Let that run. That's going to authenticate us with the private key, the same way we do when we connect with SSH, and it should be there. Temp those guys. We've got a binary. Just to make sure, I'm going to chmod it with executable permissions. Oh, that's a P, not an O. Systemctl. And now that it's there, we need to tell our path variable to the...
Well, we need to update our path variable.
Yeah, so we need to update our path variable to tell it, instead of looking in user local sbin first, look in temp those guys first. So to do that, we use export. Not... Oh, my fingers are working the wrong way around. Then we tell it the variable we want to replace, and we want it to equal temp those guys. Separate it with a colon like everything else, and then we can say equal the rest of the normal path. So everything else we want to run, if we said just make it temp those guys, then even things like export, chmod, makedir, all of those would try and look for those in temp those guys.
Yeah, they'd stop running because
they would stop working.
The only place the shell can look at is that directory, which doesn't have any of that. And it's also important to put it on the beginning. So like in a lot of times when you're setting up dev environments, like for Java and stuff, you stick it on the end of the path variable. Here it needs to be at the start, so it looks there for this before it looks in anywhere else. Otherwise, it'll run the first one it comes across, which will probably be the legitimate one, meaning we don't get it to do what we want to do.
That's right, isn't it?
What's up? Did you do an oopsie?
I don't think so. Export's the right command.
Yeah, it's export. That should have updated it.
Why didn't that work? Export to path
Equals
temp those guys. You don't do that. You do that, and then you do $path. Not a valid identifier.
I love it when stuff doesn't work.
This worked like 10 minutes ago.
User local games. If you look, bash export that, and there's an equal sign in the string. So if you go across to the right, equals. That's what it doesn't like.
Okay, screw that. Fine. Copy. We're gonna export. So it screwed up. I'm not sure where it screwed up, but it screwed up somewhere.
Yeah. The joys of life.
So we're just gonna say path equals temp those guys, and then whatever it used to equal manually.
Yep. It's done it again.
Why has it done it again?
Welcome to things not working. So, this is always fun. Sorry, bear with this for a second. While we...
There's nothing wrong with that syntax.
No, there is not. Use local games equals temp those guys. Bash export. Oh, no. It's doing the expansion of the variable. So if you have a look, it's bash export quote user local sbin. It's expanded path on that side for some reason.
Oh, it's not.
Oh, you
using
don't need the $sign, mate. You don't need the $sign.
Ah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what it is.
How did I forget that? So when you're defining variables in bash or environment variables, also spell path correctly there, mate.
Yeah.
Also add a space. So as soon as there's a $sign, bash will do expansion. So it'll try and resolve things to their lowest state. You spelled echo wrong. Oh mate, you're not having a good time with that.
This is a good one tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, now that it's there in our path, when we run our Zabbix, whatever it was called, Zabbix service.
Yep. Give it a whirl, mate.
And tell it to start or stop, it will, instead of running systemctl from wherever it normally runs from, it'll run it from those guys.
It'll run our one, which is not legitimate. It is make bad do.
No, make bad do. And now
yes.
We are root.
Yes, now we have all their memes. So we go through that, and there we go. We've got the flag. This is quite an interesting CTF. There's a few good steps. With the Zabbix bit, it's easy to go on a few loops, as demonstrated. Like, you know, that backup script thing is important to get to because you find the string that's used as the password.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you could start going down a rabbit hole of thinking that needs to do stuff. This is a lot quicker if you power your way through Zabbix and just use the API outright to try and run scripts and get reverse shells.
Definitely.
Some interesting stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of this comes down to config. So Seward binaries that... A lot of this comes back to what I call, like, don't trust user input anywhere. People just tend to think that's about web forms, but I go anywhere where a user can either directly control input, so I can enter something, or the user can control context, which is to say, I can control the path variable, which is passed to a Seward binary, which is going to run another executable. So if you were going to run systemctl inside a Seward binary, you would specifically call out the directory you are running it in.
So you would say run user bin.
Yeah. Or I think it might even just be
wherever it sits.
Like, it might just be bin. So it'd be like bin systemctl.
It's probably in slash bin, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, as a general rule, where you can use fixed paths over relative paths anyway, just do fixed paths. I mean, you can't get away from relative paths sometimes.
Yeah. But
the whole point is, like, where you can, just do them. Because that would have prevented the escalation to root. Zabbix is the sort of thing that you'd probably want to really lock down who and what can access it. Or you'd probably want to use something different for management.
Yeah.
I mean, although, like, in the corporate world, so an example I worked at a financial institution who had a bit of a biff with a major technology company that, how would I put this, were interestingly busy men. And that particular company is low on profit and kind of at the, we rip as much money out of our clients and drive what software assets we have into the ground to make money until we die. And in which case, we'll all pull our money out and go somewhere else. There's a few large tech companies that are kind of in that same pattern of they're slowly dying and they're just consuming stuff like black holes until they finally die. But anyway, they said to financial institution, we're doing an audit. They did an audit, found a whole bunch of licensing violations, slapped them with like a multi-million-dollar bill, lawsuit ensued. And as part of the settlement, it was like, you have to install this agent that has to run a system and root on every single server so that we can keep an eye on you and make sure you're licensing software properly. And that's a risky thing. As soon as you have to install some bit of software everywhere running as root that can search. It's the same with vulnerability scanners that are agent based, where they need something running on every server. They need to run as root.
Yeah.
And the risk is, as soon as something's running as root, if it's not developed well, it's problematic.
Yes.
Yes. So that's kind of comes back to this, where Zabbix wasn't running as root, but it could run stuff. And you generally want to avoid that in your management tools. Then that's the advantage of using something like Ansible, is it runs off predefined config, and you can control where that config comes from and who gets to edit it and update it. And I mean, if you do a bad job of that, you're screwed. But you know, get it right. It's a lot easier and a lot better than trying to use something like this with stuff everywhere. And then, yeah, that's kind of my spiel there. And that's probably
that was the final Reese's rant for the day.
That's probably it. It wasn't a rant. It was just
I know. That's just what we're calling them.
Okay, that's the meme.
That's the meme.
That's the meme. Anyway, that's us. This has been an hour and 40 minutes of listening to two Australian guys stream about hacking stuff.
Thanks for joining in. I hope you learned something. We'll be doing another one Tuesday next week, so not long now. I believe it's Access next week.
Yes.
So, yeah. Get that done if you haven't already, or wait till next week and we'll show you how.
Yep.
See ya.
Have fun, guys. Have fun.